Welcome to the Shit You Should Wipe podcast with me, Dr. Debbie, your clarity wizard, life coach, and ex-scientist. This is the place for kind humans who want their life to feel as good on the inside as they look on the outside, to achieve their life transition goals and live by design, not by default, who want to experience personal growth, not personal change, and who want to experience more clarity, joy, and bravery. So if you want to know what that means in practice, keep listening. Hello friends, welcome back dear wipers. So today I want to float by you the idea that you might just be too strong. And the reason is this week I once again coached a badass woman who was telling me, I wish I was stronger. To which, if you're one of my clients, I'll usually reply, what if you were actually a little too strong? Now, don't get me wrong. I do that just to get her attention and your attention in reality, because I know what she means. She means, I wish I could handle everything life throws at me without having emotional reactions, without feeling tired and anxious, basically without needing you, which I totally get, right? The truth is, like her, like me, you are already strong enough. What if you were already strong enough and all the things that we experience that we think make us not strong enough are just part of the human experience, of how our body and nervous system is designed to work? See, the goal of the work that we do in coaching is not to fix us. It's not to make us more worthy or to make us more anything, really. It is not even to make us stronger the way it's meant or the way you might mean it right now. The goal is to create safety and update your self-concept to be more fully who you are. And that is what strong should mean. So let me repeat that. I said it is 1, to create safety, and 2, update your self-concept so that you can 3, be more fully who you are. So let me dig in a little bit into each of those points. So create safety. I think that as humans, we all have the fundamental need for safety. That is why we like to feel in control, powerful, etc. And most of what we do and how we react in life is driven by that need for safety, or rather by the fear or threat of losing that safety. We fear something happening to us that is physical safety, or we fear not being loved, which is emotional safety, or we fear being misunderstood or disrespected, which is intellectual safety, or rather unsafety. So our brains are constantly looking for clues of these threats around us. And when a potential threat is identified, our nervous system gets activated to ensure our survival, really. And while this is for our survival, it's not always adapted to our actual, true life or threat situation. And it might even prevent us from doing and being what we really want to. So this is why I spend a lot of time talking about nervous system activation and capacity, if you've heard other episodes or read my newsletter, on this podcast and other platforms. So this is also one of the first things that I teach my clients, tools to downregulate their nervous system and or stop anxious thoughts, because it helps shift from survival to safety. So the second point was to update your self-concept. So while you and I already are whole, enough, and worthy, because we are human beings with personal experiences, collective experiences, and inherited experiences, as well as having a human brain, we have developed certain ideas of who we are and who we should be. And just like our current nervous system response is not always adapted to our actual true threat situation, our current self-concept might not completely be reflective of your actual true identity or the person that you want to be, which, by the way, is the same. Consider that you already are the person you want to be. You're just not behaving like it yet. Right? So another part of the work that we do in coaching is to update our self-concept so that we can behave like that person. And let me stress that very important point. That person is not the person you think you should be because this expert told you that early risers do better, or because society wants you to be blah, blah, blah. Right. It's the person you want. You yearn to be. And so this is done in the coaching space. It is done through conversations, by creating awareness, and also by experimenting. What I mean by that is that it is done by considering different perspectives. So sometimes I imagine like a playful brain fencing match between me and my client. Or maybe brain dancing in like a tango with a little pull and push. But it can also be as simple as using self-coaching tools, like looking at how your thoughts create your behavior, or simply by becoming aware of how your brain works, which I call neuroeducation if you've visited my website. And the second part of that is experimenting with being who you want to be, which sometimes requires having difficult conversations. Sometimes it requires getting out of your own way, and sometimes it requires creating new habits. But the secret is almost always it requires doing something differently, even if that something is the way you think or talk about yourself. Right, so the third point was to be fully who you are. And you might wonder, what does that even mean, right? I know that when I first approached that idea of being who I am, I thought, who the fuck knows? Not that I would ever swear out loud at the time. But I would get very upset at the idea of being who I am, because I felt pressured to know. As members of our society, or as humans in the world, most of us are conditioned to assume certain roles, certain personas, to fit in, to make it, to handle certain situations, so that we kind of lose sight of who we truly are, if we ever knew it. So part of the journey is to discover or rediscover who you are, what that is. And it takes some play, it takes some curiosity, and a little bit of courage. But mostly the courage of being uncomfortable. And I'll be honest, it'll also take some practice. And if all that sounds like a lot of work, it's only because I've just described in 10 minutes, not even 9 minutes, what the work that I do with my clients in 6 months or more. So do not freak out. If you've listened to this podcast before, you will have heard me say that if you want to start something, or if something feels too overwhelming, it's only because you haven't broken it down in small enough steps. So those 3 steps of coaching that I've just described, we actually break down into tiny doable steps every week when we coach together. Now, when I was scripting this podcast episode, I was tempted to help you take the first tiny step towards step 1, which is nervous system regulation. And then I realized 2 things. One, I've already talked, or at least emailed, quite a bit on the topic. So if you're not on my mailing list, you should really be on it. So pause this podcast and join the Brain Wipes. And 2, the topic of this episode is about being strong. So I wanted to come back to that. Because, plot twist, before we do any of that work that I just described, there is a step that is often overlooked in the coaching world, in which we focus a lot on power and empowerment. And that same step might actually be a little bit overdone in a lot of therapy space, to the point that it becomes like really imprinted in your brain. And that step is allowing. Allowing feelings, of course, allowing emotions, of course, but in particular, allowing feeling softness and powerlessness. Because when you can feel those feelings, you can be less afraid of it, and you can stop some of those things which are not serving you, but that you do to feel safe. Or, if you want to get more metaphysical, escape your own mortality. But I'll rein it back in. On my website, it says, I believe that we have the power to shape our lives, that when we feel that power, we consume less, we choose better habits, we make better decisions, and that in turn will help the planet too. But I don't want you to take that and use it against yourself. This statement is about empowerment. It is not about being a superwoman or a superman. And it is not about emotional hardness or about being strong, which is the topic of this episode. It's quite the opposite. Being strong is often meant to mean independent, capable, not needing anyone, which can make you feel or leave you to feel, 1, like a failure and disappointed with yourself, but also 2, lonely, because you push people away, like colleagues, partners. And 3, makes you feel tired because you don't ask or don't take help. And so in trying to be strong, we're using up all our mental and physical energy and capacity so that there is little left to do the things that would make us feel empowered. So I believe that we have the power to shape our lives and feel empowered. And sometimes that means leaving a little bit of our strongness, quote unquote. I know it's not a word, but that is why I love the English language, right? Because you all understand what I mean. So leave your strongness at the door. Allow yourself to feel soft, powerless sometimes. Allow yourself to have emotions always. And allow yourself to need help, support, and connection. Because it is a big fucking patriarchal lie to think that we should not need help. There, I swore again. So I'll stop. So the takeaway and today's wipe is be less strong, be human, and you'll have more capacity to be empowered. Have a great week, my dear wipers. Bye. And if you want fresh wipes and actionable tips every single week in your inbox, you better get on my email list. It's called the Brain Wipes. Also, make sure to download The Mental Offload. It's my free ebook to learn how to start wiping things off your to-do list. It's been known to help people save precious time and energy. It's also been called what everybody's psychic butthole needs.